What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologists' claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today's video is from the line. We're going to be hearing from a caller that's decided to call in and try to prove either God to us or some other kind of crazy idea. So, if you want to fuck around and find out how crazy this call gets, then please stay tuned.
This is Chuck. No pronouns given, calling him from Florida. And before I bring Chuck on, I'm actually going to bring Chuck here into our thing. Chuck, the reason why, you can hear me now, but we can't hear you. It says here that you're calling to say that religion is part of the extended phenotype of human beings. I have an issue with that. We'll talk about it if you want. However, it says here you have given no pronouns, and that's fine. You don't have to. We don't require that for anybody. We respect people who don't want to give any. But I do have a note from my producer here that says when you originally called in, you listed your pronouns as attack and helicopter, which, as I'm sure you know, is just a shitty dig at trans people, at self-identification, at the concept of gender identity. And it's really destructive and shitty. And so because you put that in there, just to begin with, even though this call wasn't about trans people, I just want to check before we actually start talking about religion or anything like that. Are you just a troll who's just looking for a reaction and just to be a dick? Or do you actually have something to actually talk about? You are now on the line, and you can answer that question before we talk about anything else.
No, I am not a troll at all. I really do have a, the discussion that I would like to have regarding the, religion as an extended phenotype of human beings. And again, I apologize. Okay. I wasn't trying to be provocative with that statement. I thought it was.
Okay, I feel like that's a bullshit thing to say, but it's whatever. We can move on.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I just want to. Yeah, I agree with John. That's kind of bullshit. If you've been paying enough attention to the discourse around trans people for the past few years, enough to use that silly joke about attack helicopter, surely you know how hurtful that can be, or at least have some inkling that people don't like it for a reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't calling in to talk about trans or anything like that. I really did have a question about religion, right. And
but you started with that, so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. Do you understand why that's a problem and why you probably shouldn't do that in the future?
Why pronouns
using why using your pronouns as or listing attack helicopter as your pronouns is kind of a hurtful thing to do, and why it's got a really problematic history and why it's just not a good. Do you have any inkling on that?
Well, regarding pronouns,
or do you just not care?
Again, I'm not trying to talk about pronouns.
We are now. So here we are. You can either talk about it at this point. Yeah, we'll take the rest of the call. I'm happy to talk about the other stuff, but because of your actions, we are now talking about it. So I'm asking you again, do you understand why that's shitty and why that's a shitty thing to do?
Why it's shitty? Well, I believe that, we have freedom of thought, and I'm not going to be thought policed. I don't believe in...
Nobody said you are.
Well, yeah, you're trying to berate me for something I thought was humorous, but
the fact that you found it humorous is the issue. And the fact that you thought it was acceptable to put that on your thing when you called in is a problem. I'm not thought policing you. I'm calling you out for something shitty that you did. So I'm asking you, do you understand that that's shitty and why, or do you not care?
Well, how should I feel? Enlighten me. What emotion should I be experiencing right now?
That's not my issue.
No, well, we're not trying to tell you how to feel.
You're looking for an outcome. What would you have me say in response?
Give me an honest answer.
Saying that I identify. Well, I would say that, saying that identifying as an attack helicopter is a really shitty thing to do in general, considering the conversation. No, I'm not done. I'm not done talking yet. Okay. It definitely identifies yourself as at least partially transphobic. And I feel like, making fun of the use of pronouns as a way to normalize, the use of pronouns, I guess, in this particular context, kind of makes you seem very shitty, just on a very personal level. Shit.
Well,
so that's kind of where we're at right now. Is that
all right? Well, I've committed a thought crime, and for that, I apologize.
No. Once again, not a thought crime. We're not doing it. Yeah, we're not playing into the whole "there's no free speech anymore" game. Nobody's accusing you of that. The thing.
Yeah, here's the thing. You did something that was shitty, and now, whoa, there appears a wild consequence of your actions, right? So that's what's happening right now, right?
Okay.
This is a consequence of your actions. We're not telling you you can't be a shitty person.
Yeah, you're welcome to be, just not on this show. So, like, you use this quote-quote joke, right? Something you thought was humorous. We're trying to get just an honest answer out of you. So you keep asking me, like, you asked, what is my preferred outcome here? My preferred outcome is that you give me an honest answer. Did you know that was shitty, or did you not care that it was shitty? Whether or not you knew, or whether or not you cared.
I consider transgenderism to be a mental disorder. I don't consider it a legitimate thing.
So your issue is, you're calling in to talk about extended phenotypes and things. Your issue is actually with biology. And the fact that, like, this is actually something that we know a lot about now, and that we have definitively shown is not anything to do with any kind of a mental disorder. John, you had something?
Oh, yeah. So very obviously, if anybody hasn't picked up on it, he just flat out lied to us at the very beginning of this, saying, I wasn't meaning to be disrespectful or a dick or anything like that with identifying as a fucking attack helicopter. I mean, you obviously lied to us. Why should we continue a conversation with you, since you're just going to lie to us anyways? There's no way that we can know if you're actually being serious at this point. Right. You just seem like a big fat fucking liar.
That's a very good point, John. That's a very good point.
All right. Well, it's up to you. I really just wanted to talk about religion. So
I really don't care, because you started the conversation before the conversation even started by attacking trans people. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and have a conversation about religion with somebody who's going to be openly bigoted and go against science, go against the American Medical Association, go against the World Health Organization, go against the American Psychiatric Association, go against all trained scientists who understand that trans people are, valid in their identities, and sit here and say, oh, no, it's this actually a mental disorder, when I'm going to go ahead and just go on a limb here and say you have no expertise or no training in this area. And start the conversation before the conversation even starts by being transphobic on our show.
Okay. Well, in the DSM-4, the gender dysphoria.
We're up to the DSM-5 now. We're up to the DSM-5 now. So in an outdated manual, they said something that you think means something that it probably doesn't mean. Who gives a shit?
Well, the science evolves. So there you go.
Yeah, science evolves. It's the reason why airplanes work. It's the reason why you're able to talk to us on the phone right now. So here's a question for you then, Chuck. Are you going to continue to grow with science, or are you going to lock yourself down in the Stone Age and decide that, nope, science was right at this exact time in history and not any other time?
No. I like science. I'm very much.
Do you like science? Because you're here saying that science isn't real. It sounds like you like stories that go along with your worldview.
Well, you have. I thought we were going to talk about religion. Are we going to talk about religion or not?
We would talk about religion if you hadn't started out by being a bigot. So now we're talking about what you did. You did a thing, and now we're talking about it. We're not policing you. We're holding you accountable for the shitty thing that you did. So again, you just said you like science. Why then are you in such disagreement with modern science?
Explain to me how I'm disagreeing with modern science. What do you mean exactly?
I'd be happy to. So let me go ahead and pull up here. This is just the World Health Organization. This is their page on gender and health. So this is who.int. I'll go and drop this tab into the chat so everybody can follow along. Gender this is from the third paragraph here. Gender interacts with but is different from sex, which refers to the biological and physiological characteristics of males, females, and intersex persons, such as chromosomes, hormones, reproductive organs. Gender and sex are related to but different from gender identity. Gender identity refers to a person's deeply felt internal individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond to the person's physiology or designated sex at birth. So that's the World Health Organization, the best doctors and biologists in the world, saying that gender and sex are different things and they don't necessarily align, that gender can be incongruent with sex. Why are you not believing what the World Health Organization says about the health of the world?
Right, because the biological gender binary evolved for a very good reason. It's because we're a species that reproduces sexually. So
wrong again there, Chuck. Let me go ahead and pull up another textbook for you. This one here, I'm actually going to share my screen, John. I'm so sorry. I'm talking so much, but let me go ahead and just pull up my screen here. This is my display capture showing now, and you can see here, this is Campbell's Biology. This is an actual goddamn biology textbook. This is the textbook, by the way. If you memorize about half of this, you get a bachelor's degree. That's what this is. Just a really standard textbook in biology. And we're just going to go ahead and click find and type in transgender into here. And here we've got right here, the biochemical, physiological, and anatomical features associated with males and females are turning out to be more complicated than previously thought, with many genes involved in their development. Because of the complexity of this process, many variations exist. Some individuals vary in the number of sex chromosomes in their cells, and others are born with intermediate sex characteristics or anatomical features that do not match the individual sets of their own gender, aka transgender individuals. So here we are again, where science disagrees with you because science shows that trans people exist and that they're valid. They're valid in their identities. I can pull up another couple of textbooks for you if you like. Here I've got, actually, let me break around the room and grab this one.
Say that human beings don't reproduce sexually. Is science saying that we don't reproduce sexually? Or are you saying that men can have babies?
Chuck, if you were paying attention even a little bit, you would have heard me say multiple times now that sex and gender are different things. Try to keep up, John. Here I've got my undergraduate genetics textbook right here, and this is from chapter 4.1. Sex is determined by a number of different mechanisms, and it says right here, it goes into a whole thing about how sex differences work, how sex isn't strictly binary, how there's different variations of sexual development, and then they have this little paragraph. Gender is not the same as sex. Biological sex refers to the anatomical and physiological phenotype of an individual. Gender is a category assigned by the individual or others based on behavioral and cultural practices. One's gender need not coincide with one's biological sex. So again, for about the 50th time now here, science disagrees with you, John. If you like science, why don't you believe it? Why are you in disagreement with all of these major medical associations and all of biology?
I think that there has been some kind of ideological capture in some schools of science, and I don't agree with all of it.
So all biologists and all doctors have been caught up in some sort of ideological whirlwind, and that's why every major medical association supports trans people, and why also, like, all of these biology textbooks that I'm bringing up for you also mention and support trans and intersex people. Is that what you're saying to me there, Chuck?
You ask a lot of leading questions. I think are you doing a lot of virtue signaling here? What exactly? I don't understand.
I dare you to drop another right-wing dog whistle. Yeah, here's the thing, is what you just said is that the reason why you don't accept modern science when it revolves around, when it involves gender, is because you think there's some big ideological push. What I just quoted to you are actual college textbooks and the largest medical organization on the planet. And you're saying that there's some sort of ideological influence here. How do you justify that belief? And how is that any different than when back in, like, I think it was the 70s, wasn't it? When the American Medical Association came out and said, actually, homosexuality is not a mental disorder. We used to believe homosexuality was a mental disorder, and then we proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that it wasn't. And a lot of people said, this is all this woke liberal stuff, when really it was just science being science. So how is what you're saying now different than what idiots were saying then?
I don't think homosexuality is a mental disorder. I think it's a normal variation of human sexuality.
But there was an issue. There was an edition of the DSM that said that it was. So why are you okay with that science evolving, but not science regarding gender?
Listen, I just don't think women can be men. I don't think sex is on a
nobody's saying women can be men, Chuck. We're saying that trans women are women and that trans men are men, because woman and man are gender terms, which are different than things like male, female, and intersex, which are sex terms. Because as I've said several times now, sex and gender are different things.
The sex and gender are the same thing. I don't believe that sex and you can separate sex from gender. I think you're male.
So
and
once
female.
again, you are in disagreement with the World Health Organization and every major medical association in this country, and also modern biology, as I've just shown you from modern biology textbooks, one that I used in college and one that I teach out of today. So college textbooks about biology, biologists like me, and also the best doctors in the country and the world think you're wrong. What do you know that we don't, Chuck?
I see the line of questioning. I got you. Okay, so you're really gonna just frame it in terms of I'm how morally disordered because I don't believe in this ideology of gender and sex.
I haven't brought up morality at all, Chuck. Only you have. I'm asking you, why, if you are a person who says they like science, why are you in disagreement with the leading science organizations on the planet about this issue? Is there any other science that you don't believe in?
There's plenty of biologists who don't agree with that. When I took biology as an undergrad, they weren't pushing this stuff. This is very recent.
When did you take biology as an undergrad?
In the early 2000s.
Okay, so do you think in the last 20 years we've learned more things?
I think there's been ideological capture, as I mentioned before. There's an agenda.
So you don't think that we've learned anything new about sex or gender in the last 20 years?
No, I think, we are still a species that reproduces sexually, and I don't think men can get pregnant. Like you're going to play games.
So here we are again. You are in disagreement with the best doctors and biologists in the world. You are in disagreement with not only all the universities that are teaching biology, but the biologists who write the textbooks for the universities. Professional biologists writing materials for other professional biologists to train new professional biologists. You're in disagreement with those things because you think there's some ideology involved. And yet, when it comes to other pushes in this direction, other ways in which science has evolved, like homosexuality, for example, you don't seem to have a problem with it. So once again, you took biology in your undergrad. What did you learn that I didn't? What's the evidence that you have that sex and gender are inseparable? That somehow the World Health Organization, the American Medical Association, the Endocrine Society, the American Psychiatric Association, that genetics textbook, that Campbell's biology book, those people don't know the thing that Chuck knows. So what is it? Tell me what it is that you know that I don't.
Yeah, you're smart. I'm dumb. You're right. I'm wrong. You got it all figured out. So yeah, you got.
I mean,
that's a really lame and cowardly answer there, Chuck.
Yeah, Forrest actually asked you a question, and you're just gonna try to deflect. Like, I'm sorry, this harkens back to the very beginning of the conversation. No, this harkens back to the very beginning of the conversation when you just lied to us about about meaning to insult trans people with how you identify as a fucking attack helicopter. So, I mean, honestly, I don't see any reason why anybody should take you seriously. But I would love to hear the answer to Forrest's actual question here. Whether that's going to be a lie or not, my guess is it's probably going to be a lie.
I feel like this is not supposed to be a culture war issue. I was talking about religion, but you're insisting on making it an issue here. But what exactly is your?
There is no culture war issue, Juck. There is no culture war issue. Sorry, go ahead, John. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say we're insisting on just being respectful. I'm from North Alabama, okay, so like redneck as fuck out here, okay. And how I was brought up was to respect other people, and that would include however they seem to identify. You know, it's not up to me to dictate to somebody else as to how they should identify. It would be really dickish of me to make fun of the person that just wants to correctly communicate with other people. Like, when did it become such a bad thing to want to communicate effectively with other people by providing the correct pronouns that you should use when referring to other people? Like, I just don't understand that. If there's a culture war that's going on here, the culture war is coming from your dipshitty side. Okay, that's the only culture war that's coming on, because you have a war against just treating people fucking respectfully. And so that's the only problem that really exists here. There's no problem on our side other than the fact that you're being a dick. You started off by lying to us, and now we're not going to let that go, and you seem to be uncomfortable about that.
I'm not.
I also want to throw out the fact that I dared you to use another right-wing dog whistle, and then you just threw out culture war. Now it sounds like I'm arguing with freaking Jordan Peterson. It's disgusting.
So do I have to bear the cross of Jordan Peterson? Am I going to be?
Oh my God! Holy shit!
Like what?
It's insane to me how much of a victim you feel like for just being held accountable for being an asshole. Like, it's really wild. Like, you called in and said something shitty because for some fucking reason, you've decided that all the scientists are wrong about this one thing. It's like an anti-vaxxer. Yes, I know. I trust all medicine and I'll go to a doctor when I need chemo. But like with this one particular vaccine, with this one particular disease, I think they've all got it wrong. I think I know more than all of them. And when we're sitting here presenting you with modern science, we're presenting you with actual like credible organizations that think something differently than you. You're like, no, that's all ideological stuff. And on top of all of it, on top of you just flatly refusing to accept that there are people who are smarter than you on this issue, on top of that, you're going to throw out here, oh, you're thought policing me, and oh, well, I guess I committed a thought crime, and oh, well, you're just virtue signaling, all these things, as if you're the wounded party here when you called onto our show to be a dick, and now we're like, hey, why are you such a dick? And that's been this whole call. So, like, honestly, dude, I don't get what your problem is. If you say you like science, keep up to date with it, learn new stuff.
Science is not supposed to be ideological, but I feel like I've committed the crime of being against your transgender ideology. Not everybody has to believe.
There's no ideology here, Chuck. The evidence has shown us that sex and gender are different things and that they're not necessarily congruent. That's why every leading medical association accepts that fact. Do you think that do you think that all these people who write these textbooks are just like, well, I guess we're going to talk about trans people? Or do you think that maybe biologists are doing biology?
Have you ever heard of lysenkoism? Do you know what lysenkoism is?
No, I would like you to answer the question that I just asked you.
Well, I believe that, science, like any other institution, is subject to corruption. I think this is just a function of an ideological capture and corruption of what science is supposed to be. I think it'll eventually get squared away.
And so that's why, like, when people publish things in the literature and it gets peer reviewed and stuff, that's what that's for, right? Is to help get rid of that. So why is it that now all of these major medical associations, including the World Health Organization, are all on a side that's different? Are they all corrupted? Are they all corrupt, Chuck? Are they all just here? They're all been infiltrated by trans people and their allies, so that now all of these scientists have to differ away from science on this one tiny little issue?
No, there's a push to make, this ideology capture the biological sciences. It started in the in psychology and the social sciences.
Mm-hmm. So just out of curiosity, also I want to ask, you do know that whole argument that you've used a couple of times about how, like, well, humans are a sexually reproducing species and all that stuff, you know, that was also used to try to keep homosexuality as a mental disorder, right?
Well, listen, I'm not talking. I've already said that homosexuality is a normal variation of human sexuality. There's nothing.
Right. But answer my question, Chuck. People used to say that humans are a sexually reproducing species and there's males and females, and therefore homosexuality is wrong and it's a disease and it's a disorder. Why don't you believe them? Why don't you accept that argument, but you do accept the argument that because we're sexually reproducing, that trans people aren't real?
Because trans people have an extremely high rate of suicide. It seems to me like
I see. So Chuck, let me ask you another question. Do you think that high suicidality is associated with being trans because they have some disease, some disorder, or do you think it might be because they live in a society where people like you are arguing that they don't exist and that they're all disease and disorders, and that we have countless laws being talked about and passed in this country to influence their lives and to stop them from using a bathroom properly and to stop them from playing sports properly? There was a state not too long ago that literally the state passed a law about trans people in sports that affected exactly one high school girl, because she was trying to play sports and she was trans. And that one girl got a whole law passed to ban just her from playing in her high school sports, because we have commentators like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and the rest of them that try to dismiss these people's identities and call them disease and disorder and all these things. Do you think that there's a high suicide rate in this community because there's something wrong with the community, or because they live in a world where people are treating them as if they're all diseased perverts and questioning the validity of their identity and using dumbass pronouns like attack helicopter when they're trying to just say, hey, this is who I am, this is how I feel, these are the feelings that I have that are, again, supported by the best science that we have and supported by every major medical association in the country and the World Health Organization. These are the feelings I'm having, and people are treating them like dog shit. Do you think that maybe that has something to do with the high suicide rate in that community, Chuck?
Why don't you answer that question? You're much more knowledgeable about this than I. Do you think that? Is that something that
it's weird that you think that I am, because you've said over and over that you don't care what science says, your feelings matter more. So I'm asking you a question. I would like you to answer it. Do you think that the high suicide rate that we see in the trans community is their fault, or it's because they live in a world that treats them as if they are lesser than?
I think the fact that even pre-op, post-op, they still commit suicide is pointing to something is wrong internally. That's what I think. I don't think society.
So you think that as soon as go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say, like, you're not actually countering what Forrest has said or is trying to point out here, because, like, pre, post, whatever point in a person's treatment, they can still be, subjected to those same social factors that increase, the suicide rate or increase suicidal thoughts in people that are trans. So you're not actually differentiating anything. You're just adding more bullshit onto whatever lies you're trying to tell us right now.
Also, I'm just going to throw this out there as if you give a shit what science actually says, just in case you decide to, that maybe there are people who are smarter than you in the world. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here. This is from the American Medical Association. This is actually an article published by the president of the American Medical Association, or at least he was at the time. This says every major, because you brought up surgery, every major medical association recognizes the vital role of gender-affirming care in improving the physical health and mental well-being of transgender individuals. Widely accepted standards of care and clinical guidelines guidelines recommend a stage process for transgender minors that enable young people to explore and live the gender that they choose while keeping options open. Studies have consistently demonstrated that providing gender-affirming care that is both age-appropriate and evidence-based leads to improved mental health outcomes. Conversely, denying such care is linked to a greater increase of anxiety, depression, and self-harm. So you say it's before and after surgery? Once again, modern medical science disagrees with you. Gender-affirming care is life-saving care. And while, yes, there are still high rates of suicide and depression in these communities, once again, that is demonstrating an external problem, not an internal problem. And you would recognize that if you were honest with yourself for 3 fucking seconds, Chuck.
Yeah. So
I'll go and drop that link in the chat as well so everybody can read it.
Right. Society is wrong. Okay. I've apparently, I know I have blasphemed against this ideology, and for that, I apologize.
Oh my God.
And once again, Chuck. Once again, Chuck, nobody's saying that but you. You have a mental dodge every time somebody says something you don't like to say, oh, well, I've offended it's the thought police. Oh, I've hurt their feelings. Oh, my God. When the entire time we've been here, it's been feelings over facts for you. Every major medical association disagrees with you. The World Health Organization disagrees with you. Modern biology disagrees with you. But your feelings say that, nah, this seems kind of wrong and icky. And it's not what I learned back in the early 2000s. So therefore, it must be incorrect. And when we're trying to demonstrate to you that what you're doing is not only incorrect, but harmful, you're going to come at us and say, oh, well, I'm the victim now because oh my God, I've offended you and you're going to hurt me and take it out on me. No, you just said something that's incorrect. And we're trying to educate you on it and trying to show you that smarter people than you or I think that you're incorrect. Right. So why don't you believe them? Why are these same arguments that you agree are bad for homosexuality good enough for you when it comes to trans people?
Because homosexuals aren't committing suicide at the same rates as transgenders.
They were when it was considered a mental disorder, Chuck. Suicidality was very high in the homosexual community when homosexualities were less accepted in society. When we began to accept them as a society, suicide rates went down. When modern science came along and said, actually, these people are not disease perverted freaks. They actually are just normal human beings trying to live in a way that doesn't hurt anybody. All of a sudden, magically, they stopped hurting themselves and killing themselves and feeling depressed and anxious as much. Same thing happens when trans people are allowed access to gender-affirming care and societal acceptance. Study after study confirms this.
What you call gender-affirming care is really just castrating homosexuals. I see it as a wicked thing.
Oh my God. Can we drop him?
Right. All right. Yeah, this is the last one for me, Chuck, because I'm really just sick of it. You need to read a fucking book, dude. One that isn't written by some alt-right talking head. Because here's the fact of the matter. Every single thing that you've said in this call has been demonstrably wrong. Not ideologically wrong, actually factually wrong. If you read any medical publication on this or any basic biology textbook in this, you will see that you are actually wrong. And what you've done consistently is not only say that you're the smartest fucking person on the planet and that all these doctors and scientists don't know what they're talking about, but also gone on to parrot all sorts of really, really toxic and harmful things that actually increase the rate of depression and anxiety and self-harm in this community. So you are actively not only being ignorant, but being hurtful to people that need to be protected now more than ever. So I don't know why the fuck you get off, dude, but it's ridiculous that you would call into a show about people who give a shit about science and evidence and inclusivity and equality and try to spew this nonsense as if you're going to get away with it and then be fucking upset when we call you out on it.
Okay, you can call me out on it, but I'm not going to parrot the line that you want me to parrot. You want to?
No, I want you to educate yourself. I don't care what you parrot. I want you to read something that you don't already agree with for a change.
Reasonable people can disagree. There's disagreement in science all the time. Not everybody has to follow doctrine or dogma.
This is not just disagreement, though.
This is not this is disagreement like the level of what shape is the earth kind of disagreement. Yeah, we disagree. I study biology in my job all the time. We disagree on how things evolved. We disagree on when things evolved. We don't disagree on whether or not they evolved, because we know that evolution happens. So when we talk about trans people, we can disagree upon like whether or not this type of care is necessary. We can disagree on whether or not these kinds of policies are helpful. We don't get to disagree on whether or not these people are valid in their identities and that their lives matter and that what we're doing as a society is hurting them, because those are all things that are actual demonstrable facts. So you don't get to disagree with facts, Chuck. You get to disagree with the implications of facts, but you don't get to disagree with facts. Anyway, with that, it's been 33 minutes of you just parroting transphobic talking points and telling us that we have an ideology problem when we're the ones following the evidence, and you're the one just parroting Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and all these other people who just say whatever the fuck they want to say because it makes them money. I hope maybe someday you go back to school and learn biology, Chuck, because we've learned a lot of shit since the early 2000s.
Well, what are you going to do? All right. Well, have a good night.
Learn something is what you should do.
Bag of shit.
Yeah, that would be a great step. That would be a great first step. I am
20 minutes worth.
Yeah, I'm not going to 20 minutes left. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not going to fucking let that shit slide, dude. Thank you for participating in that with me, John. Really appreciate it. What fucking
I mean, I know that you know yeah, you know way more about the science behind like the gender and sex and everything. So I was very edified on your rant there. But I don't know. I just can't. If he starts off the call with a lie, then he's just gonna be a troll the entire time. I feel like there's no way you can trust anything he's gonna say.
And that's what gets me about it is like, I know for sure, I would bet $1 million that Chuck walked away from that call being like, oh, well, I woke up the woke people. I kicked the hornet's nest and all these blue haired liberals had to come out and tell me I was wrong because I disagree with their ideology. When like the entire call was just textbooks and quotes from major medical associations, people who know what they're talking about saying he's wrong. Like, yeah, but like you're thought policing me. It is insane how much of a victim a bigot feels like. That's what gets me, is when you're sitting there kicking somebody on the ground, being like, yeah, but like they said something mean about me kicking them, so now I need to kick them more. They groaned a little too loud while I was kicking them, and that means they're the problem. And I cannot stress this enough, fucked.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me when people have an issue with facing the consequences of their actions, because that just seems like he talked about it as if we were, punishing him for, thinking differently. But it's like, no, these are the consequences of your actions. Like, I mean, you want to come on here and lie and then act like you were stupid about the whole attack helicopter thing, and then you proceeded to go down this transphobic tirade where he just spouted off all of these talking points that you would hear from any other transphobe out there. So
that's what gets me.
I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just
no, I think you're absolutely right. That's what gets me about it. It's like every single time the dude spoke, it was, okay, well, that didn't work. Here's this other shit I heard on 4chan. You know what I mean? Like that was the whole thing over and over and over. Oh, well, they're castrating homosexual. No, they're fucking not. And there's evidence for that. Oh, well, humans only come in two sexes and we're sexual. That's completely irrelevant and also not entirely true. So what the fuck's the point of what you're saying? Well, I didn't learn it that way back in the 2000s. Okay, we've learned more shit about that since the 2000s. Also, other things like homosexuality. We've learned more so about homosexuality since 2000s. Yeah, well, they're right about that. But like just this one thing, literally everybody's wrong but me. And like, just dude, I don't know where the fuck you get that much arrogance. It's the same thing as the first call. Just the absolute arrogance to say, everybody is wrong about it. I know the one way. The only way to pray is Robert's way. And the only way to have a gender is Chuck's way. And all these people that have demonstrated that shit doesn't work, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They all did it wrong. It's I think I would ask him to pull his head out of his ass, but I don't know if there's a crowbar big enough.
Well, Well, heathens, that's going to be it for this call today. If you want more of this kind of content, you can hit up the links down in the description to go and subscribe to The Line here on YouTube. We're always producing great live content where we take callers from people. We're also adding new shows all the time. So please go down there, subscribe to The Line so that you can get more of this kind of content. I'm not sure if this was 20 seconds or anything like that, but yada, yada, yada. Jimmy, go fuck yourself.